Hello, good evening, everyone. Um, Good afternoon from wherever you are. Good morning, good evening, and then good night if this is nighttime for you. So we're back again here on the Roadmap NBA show to discuss and reflect on something topical, really. So it's been a very good day for me. Top, I would say. And but pop in the chat there. Let's know how you're doing, where you're listening from. Yeah. So again, like I said, this is the Roadmap MBA show. We do this regularly. We tend to want to discuss topical issues that bother on the world, that would come out from our experiences, our day-to-day lives. And just if today is your first time of joining the Roadmap MBA, just a little bit about the project, right? It's a startup, even though somehow I think that it's an exponential startup because already in 42 countries in the world, just within a year plus, it doesn't sound like a normal startup, right? So. But this is a startup. It's a company that's on a mission, right? It's a company that has on a mission, founded by Steve Pugh. He's also a presenter on the show. The goal is simple. We're on a mission to help people around the world to build a better life for themselves, creating an accessible platform for all communities to thrive and celebrate together. It's a business education platform. Everybody who has anything to do with business and life, is welcome to be part of this. And the good thing about it is that it's accessible. It's accessible to everyone. If you don't have money, whatever it is, wherever you're listening from, far away in Kenya, Zimbabwe, Asia, Australia, the US, anywhere you are, you can easily get business education, very affordable and accessible to yourself. So that's the dream. And we tend to do this live stream periodically. I'm one of the guest presenters on the show. Steve, the founder, is one of the presenters. And then we have also Ashley, who's also one of the presenters on the show. And very soon we're going to have more people join us because we're building a community of value creators. We're building a community of real people. I was just talking to Steve before the session to say that one of the key things that we, the Roadmap MBA boasts of is the fact that there are real people behind the stories, behind the use cases that we share. It's not just all theories from the 1800s, right? It's real life stories, real life events, and how you can easily connect, the theory of business education to the practice of your day-to-day life. It's more or less strategy as practice, not strategy as theory or as thought. It is strategy as, day-to-day practice, tweaking, ideating, that iterative process of learning. That's what we do here. And like we always say, the caveat is that we are individuals with varying experience, diverse experience. I myself, for one, grew up in Africa, in Nigeria. So I come with some diverse experience as well. Ashley as well has her own huge experiences, and Steve himself. So what we share here is kind of a confluence of our thought process, and we believe that it's in that that merger, if you will, that sweet spot. That's where we create magic, right? Which the world needs, So welcome again. Just a little disclaimer from my side: the thoughts and the experiences I will be sharing here are entirely mine, and they are not anybody's thoughts. They are entirely mine, and they are just for us to be able to reflect and move on, right? Okay, so That's it about the introduction. I hope I've not missed anything in the introduction. I know Steve is working on the YC application. He's been putting out a few videos here and there. The company is really growing. He's doing quite a bit of stuff. Yeah, but I think you should just keep watching this space because something huge is about to happen. The app is about to be launched within the next few weeks. So that's another big one. Breaking news, breaking news. The app will be ready in the next few weeks. We have our website already functional. You can take the course on the website. But because we know that we want to really stay true to this accessibility value proposition that we are driving, a very fit for purpose app has been developed on iOS and on Android. So very soon you would have access to that as well. And then you can study on the go, in the train, anywhere you are. You can learn. You can join the live classes. You can also join the live streams from wherever you are, right? So that's it about the Roadmap MBA. There's a lot of growth happening, so stay tuned and join us on the journey to the destination to reach 5 billion people. That's the destination. Okay, so today we will be looking at a topic, and in our usual way, what we try to do here is we try to generate conversations from our day-to-day lives. I think in the spirit of mindfulness, we're always looking at what's the so what in everything that happens to us, right? So I could be on the train, and then I'm thinking about, just looking out in the outside of the train and seeing the trees, and I'm like, okay, what's it about the trees? And the trees could lead me to some thought process, which eventually could lead me to an idea, maybe a business idea or something, right? And that's the kind of mindset we try to foster on the show, that everything, can really help us to drive mindfulness. We can be mindful of everything, and we can build stuff from anything, right? So today we'll be talking about HR, human resource transformation. And to be honest, this topic actually came up or just came to mind after having a conversation with the head of HR in a major company. I shared, a cab with the head of HR of a major company within the week, and we had a few conversations around HR, and that led me thinking. I'm always thinking about okay, how can we do this? What can we build? How can we solve this problem? In fact, in my sleep, I'm always processing how to solve problems. And so when we had that conversation, it set me thinking, there is a problem that needs to be solved. So I felt, okay, why not come and share it here in the bigger house? Let's have a conversation. And, so I think if you are an HR professional, you'll be interested in listening to this, just listening to the conversations here. If you are an innovator, an entrepreneur who wants to start up a business, or who's in the business of, starting up businesses, you want to stick in here and join the conversation. If you're also a career professional, and you're a researcher, you're more than welcome to stay put and listen to what we're saying, and then just contribute in the chat. Let's have a two-way conversation and reflect on the new normal around HR. But before we delve into that big time, as is our modus operandi here, what we do is to share with you our experiences within the last, since the last time we were on stage till this time. So for me, you can also please pop in on chat and let me know how your last. I've been here in the last. The last time I was here was 2 weeks ago. So you can tell me what you have been up to. I can see Steve on the chat. HR is interesting because it affects everyone. Absolutely. In fact, what I told the HR lead head I was with the other day, I told her that HR is, I don't envy them at the moment because they seem like they're the busiest in any company. And those are the things we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so topic is actually very long. Human resource transformation in the age of the distributed workforce and the gig economy. But we can just shorten it to HR in the new age. HR in the new age. Okay. So, but like I said, before I delve into this, it would be good to just, kind of share my experiences within the last 2 weeks. It's been a kind of somber one for me, I'd say. I lost a colleague who was very dear to me, very close. And, he went on a 2 weeks leave, and they went on a leave and didn't come back. It was a very, very kind of painful experience for me because I had a very close relationship with himself. And within that period as well, I attended his funeral. You can imagine you were with somebody like 2-3 weeks ago, spoke with the person, and then he called me, said, I'm going on vacation, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden you're attending his funeral at the crematorium. It was just all very painful. But again, that's life, isn't it? Today we are here and tomorrow we're gone. So that's the reason why everyone has to do what? Be mindful of their lives and give your best, just like Steve is doing, trying to affect the world with his enterprise. So that happened. And also within that period, so it's in bittersweet, within the 2 weeks, I also had a colleague of mine who moved on to another organization. And so we had a quick hangout in a very beautiful location in London. That was a good one. I quite enjoyed that. And then back home in Nigeria, there is something raging at the moment. So, I can't really talk about my last 2 weeks without mentioning that because I have to constantly keep in touch with home to be sure everyone is fine. So there's been a policy of the central bank that has been causing some outcry, So the central bank, we had a change in currency notes, which is I think is a function the central bank does often. It's supposed to do once in 8 years anyway, but it had not been done in the last 19 years in Nigeria. So it was something really long overdue. So, the deadline for the old notes was supposed to be tomorrow. So there are a lot of outcries, and clearly around the general elections are happening next month, and usually the general elections are usually monetized. So I think the central bank was trying to curb that monetization of the electoral process. So it's been really a lot of outcries in the country. People don't have the new notes, and so in fact my elder sister called me to say that she had to stop her business because people who were coming in were trying to pay with the old notes, but she wasn't sure she would be able to turn it over to get the new notes. So again, it has impacted the economy, but this is what happens, in life. So I just thought to share that because of course it impacts me as a Nigerian. And then as we head to the elections as well next month, it's a topical time for my country. And I'm constantly keeping in touch to know what is happening there. Great. So that's it about myself. Then tell me what you've done, what you've been up to. My last 2 weeks have been busy, lots of outreach to partners who would love to work with you. So that's Steve for you. Steve is building and building and building. So he's been reaching out to partners and brainstorming on how to grow this community beyond where we are at the moment. So he's been extremely busy. So let me know what your day has been or your week has been or the last 2 weeks have been, and let's have a quick chat. Okay? All right, let's delve into the meat of the matter. So this isn't going to be a very long conversation, but it's just a for us to have a reflection on the challenges of our HR professionals in this time. I think, HR in the past used to be where people feel like, oh, that's the kind of resting place, if you will. People feel, oh, I want to do less stressful jobs. I just go do some certifications, do some stuff, and then move over to HR because it's more interacting, it's people oriented, it's kind of at your pace kind of stuff, because you recruit people in the past before you fill that role again. Sometimes it could take years, and I was telling the HR person I was with in the cab the other day that, you fill a role today, and within the next, in fact, you need to start planning how to fill that role again immediately the person resumes, because the turnover is becoming alarming. It's becoming alarming. In fact, I once did a post sometime to say that I think in this new age, people are no longer loyal to their companies. They're more loyal to their mental health, their families, their career progressions and stuff like that. So, and then beyond that, we've had some new stressors or some new drivers in this whole HR conversations, which we'll be discussing, So, like I said, we'll be talking about HR in the new age, but what's this new age that we're going to be focusing on? The new age we're going to be focusing on is the age of the distributed economy or distributed workforce. If you know me, you will know that this is a topic I'm always very conversant with. Distributed workforce. And then the gig economy. The gig economy. So like I said, if you've been listening to me or following me on LinkedIn, even Facebook, anywhere, you will find out that these two keywords or words are things that I use all the time. In fact, I've everything almost every ideation that comes to my head now is around solving problems around these two things. In this new age of HR, there are two key drivers that are impacting HR at the moment. And then we'll also talk about the Gen Z. If you decide to neglect Gen Zs in any conversation about HR, then you're in big trouble. That's the future, right? They are the friends we need to have in the office. We'll talk about them. We'll talk about Gen Zs, right? Anyway, I'm a millennial, so I'm very close to the Gen Zs. So I'm not far away. So don't think I'm bucketing you somewhere. No. You are my friends. Gen Zs and the millennials are very close. We narrowly missed it out. Okay, so we're just neighbors. So let's look at this whole distributed workforce. What's a distributed workforce? What's a distributed workforce? A distributed workforce refers to a team of employees, right, who work from multiple locations. Simple, right? A team of employees who work from multiple locations. So I think the real question that I asked this HR person in the cab in the taxi was, how are you managing this whole workforce? What's the word now? This transient workforce that we have in the companies. How are you managing them? And are you in any way considering a distributed workforce where people can work for your company from anywhere they are, anywhere in the world they are? Is that something you're considering? And she opened my eyes to a new set of challenges that impact working from anywhere, which I never really thought of. And within the last few months, I've been reading books around testing your idea, if you will. So I've read Mom's Test. I've read the Lean B2B. I'm also currently reading the startup. Is it called the Startup Manual or so? And then I'm also reading the Platform Revolution. So I've been reading books around, kind of testing ideas, and I felt like, okay, that was a good opportunity to kind of, talk through this without even giving up anything, anyways. And it was interesting the perspective I got around the distributed workforce. So in the past, what we usually would have is that we have people who work who work in one location, right? So you have a big office where everyone is working in. You come in, it looks like a warehouse. Everyone is on their computers, and then that's the usual. That's the kind of workplace we all grew up knowing, right? And then we began to see things like COVID coming, and we started to see that working remotely was doable. But even working remotely was still within the same location, right? So maybe your company is in the UK, you are working remotely, but you're working in the UK. So the big question, or the real next steps in this whole conversations would actually be, how do we get people working from outside of the core business location of the company without infringing on any global international laws? Because that was the perspective that was thrown open to me in that conversation. So let's talk about distributed workforce. Like I said, employees, and the word employee notes that the person must be on the payroll of the company. That's a key one, because what it means that if someone is in the US, and this was what the HR head told me, if the person is in the US and the company is in the UK, you have to pay, and you're paying the person salaries in the US, there has to be conversations around tax, isn't it? How do you remit your taxes? How do you ensure that the person has the requisite right to work in that location, right? It could be remote, but again, there is already conversations happening. You are an employee, which means that you are employed by an international organization. In fact, at that chat, I got to know that even as it stands now, maybe within Europe, if you're on vacation outside of your regular location, you're not allowed to even be working while you're on vacation, because it kind of breaches international laws and stuff like that. And that was really expository to me, because for me, the only problem I thought to solve within distributed workforce around workforce optimization, managing workforce and geographies and all that, was usually around security, GDPR. And here am I with a head of HR who is telling me GDPR is not an issue compared to the issue of tax and right to work in the domicile country. So again, that just hit me hard to say the real importance of having to validate your ideas before you go in to start building a solution. If you're thinking of building a solution, you may as well want to start thinking about who are the potential users of that solution, and get into informal conversations with them and begin to test the idea, right? And just begin to ask questions to say, what is happening here? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? How are you managing this? Why did you do this? Are you doing this? Those non-leading questions, but you get a feel of what it's in their head, what they're thinking. So that's about the distributed workforce. You have employees, people within your payroll, but they are in multiple locations, and this is the future. At the moment, what we have is we could have you could find companies, bigger companies with subsidiaries. So a bigger company that has subsidiaries in many countries around the world can run on this kind of model easily without really breaching any laws, in my understanding, because those people will be employed domiciled within their countries, but again they're working, they can work across the length and breadth of the subsidiaries of the company globally. But a company that has a startup, for instance, of 250 people, which is usually the catchment area of this of the roadmap MBA, smaller companies of less than 250 people, how and they are in dire need of resources, they're in dire need of people to work for them. How can they manage this whole distributed workforce without having to, one, break the bank, because thinking about the taxation and all that, and then all the right to work issues, how do they check that? And what came to my mind was that there is a problem to solve there, clearly. So if you're an innovator, you're a startup, you're an entrepreneur, you may as well start thinking about the value chain of activities involved in there. So there is you want to talk about maybe visa checks, and maybe an API that we can plug into a solution that easily checks visas across different countries, plugged into their local visa systems. And then you may also want to do some tax research to understand what the tax laws say per region. Because if you want to be a small, if you want to be a startup in the UK and you want to leverage resources in the US, in Kenya, in India, you want to also be sure that you're operating on the right side of the law, and that if there is a simplified version of a service that allows people to plug into a system that already simplifies the tax situations in these major countries, where you can get, people can easily go in there to see how they can access resources from those areas without having to breach the law. I think what you may be seeing now is that some startups may be doing this because they are startups, but as you begin to grow, you want to be sure that from the beginning of your business, you are doing the right thing, and not just playing into the hands of regulators and all that. So, that came to mind to say there is a bigger conversation to talk about managing distributed workforces. So having people working for your company, whether full-time or part-time, from anywhere in the world without breaching any international regulations. Okay, so I haven't talked about that, and a key thing that I wanted to talk about was why is distributed workforce becoming a thing in this time? Why are we all talking about distributed workforce at the moment? And clearly in the post-COVID era, right? In the post-COVID era, we began to hear about people can work from anywhere. I knew an executive of a company from Nigeria then who was stuck in the US during COVID, and he had to work from the US throughout the period. I know of somebody as well who left Nigeria to another country, relocated to another country, and was able to keep working for a while before. So COVID also kind of threw up that possibility for us to say people can work from anywhere. But I think the challenge around COVID was the fact that people couldn't move from their houses to the office, but within the same location, right? But now stretching that a little bit to say someone who migrates from Nigeria, for instance, to Canada, right? And he still wants to be in the employment of his employers in Nigeria while living the life in Canada. It's a win-win for everybody, isn't it? He wants to experience a new life in Canada. He wants to get a new experience, seeing something new. And then his employers in Nigeria also want him on their payroll, on their job. How can we ensure that there is a system that ensures easy onboarding of those kind of people and managing those workforce without any breaching of international laws, because we're really keen on ensuring that there are no breaches in international laws, mostly GDPR, taxation, right to works. So COVID was one of the key drivers, that brought this into center stage. And then COVID taught us about remote working. Another key thing is the growth in technology. So what we're seeing now is that technology is with the improvement in technology, you're being able to make very wonderful video calls from anywhere in the world. In the past, when you want to do a video call, there are a lot of considerations. Or you're thinking about your data, how much data you're going to use. You're thinking of the quality of the. I still get into some calls into some places in the world, and you see how the internet over there is. Those concerns are beginning to go away. Not everywhere anyway, because I was discussing with Steve the other day about scaling Roadmap MBA in Nigeria, and we were talking about internet penetration, and how that's a concern to people. But again, the point is we've moved from where we used to be some 10, 15 years ago to where we are now. There's massive improvement in technology, and that has also encouraged companies to manage distributed, to start thinking of managing a distributed workforce, right? So a company can develop a workflow that ensures that they can pass on work packages to people around the world, and they do them in a secure environment and send them down. All this is thanks to technology. And then we also have technologies such as blockchain that helps you to imbibe some, build in some trust processes within your applications, and that people can trust that a system, is secure enough and is able to fulfill the agreements inbuilt in that system. So technology has been also one of the key things that has helped us to scale that thinking around distributed workforce. We're not there yet, and that's the reason why we're having this reflection, because I think that there is still a lot to be done in terms of ideating, in terms of bringing this technology to life. There is still a lot to do. There is still a lot to do. There is still a whole lot to do. A lot of principles that we can bring in from other sectors into building solutions and solving these problems around distributed workforce. It's just for us to think through. That's why I said, if you're a researcher, there is something to think through around here. If you're an innovator, you want to also start thinking about how can we solve this? Because mark my word, this is the future of HR. We're going to have HRs in the next 5 to 10 years where maybe, this is my projections, maybe more than 50% of the workforce don't reside within the geography of that company. And most of those same people, will be working on with the company as though there is nothing different. And when we're talking about technology, we're looking at things like metaverse, right? Metaverse, where you can immerse yourself in a world of a kind of a virtual world, right? So you could be in Nigeria and go into your organization in the UK, in that world, right? So there is the possibilities are kind of endless, really. And I think we can only be limited by our thinking process. And that's what we try to do here, to stretch your mind, to say, there is something to be done here, right? There is work to be done here. HR vacancies will continue to grow. There will still be less people to take up those jobs, and there will be people elsewhere to want to take them. And one other thing that has also, triggered this is cost savings. So a lot of companies also want to save monies on relocating people to the central place where their companies are. And one of the key things in developing any business idea is to be sure that the company or your customers have a budget for it. Now, if your idea is to help a company save XYZ amount of money, then you're already sure that you have something to market for, right? So if you are able to develop something that, and you bring it to me as a CEO and say, you use this tool and you'll be able to save this amount of money you used to, kind of relocate or send around your people, and it still delivers the value or even more value than they were delivering in the past. You'll be sure that you'll be able to work towards that cost savings and pitch on that, right? And then while we're talking about that as well, a lot of we're talking about this distributed workforce, and what I'm saying here is more like the business case for the distributed workforce. Another key thing is that most countries now, a typical example is the UK. We're having huge pressures on our public services, right? There is just so, the growth in infrastructure within the public services is not commensurate with the growth in the population. And so you hear things every now and then. I'm sure if you're in the UK, you must have heard of Suella Braverman, who's the minister in charge of that, always saying things like, okay, we need to reduce the number of people. She's actually just talking about how to save the public services within the country. The NHS is under pressure, the train stations, everybody. So those pressures, even though there's been arguments to say that it's not necessarily the number of people, it's more around the underfunding. But again, you would understand that even though if it's underfunded, if there were less people, it would still work, right? So the pressure is showing because there are more people. We need more people, no doubt, to do some things and all that. But with distributed workforce, and with a foolproof solution around how to manage distributed workforce, focused on UK, for instance, UK vacancies. I think just between October and December last year, there were over 1 million vacancies, Office for National Statistics. So there are tons and tons of jobs. But the point is, the country is still trying to protect its public services. So if there is a solution that ensures that HR professionals for companies in the UK can confidently, because that's the word, can confidently leverage resources, human resources from elsewhere to fulfill their jobs, then don't you think that would be a product that would sell very fast? So I think these things are kind of business cases why we should be thinking about how to help HR, and how when you're helping HR, you're also helping yourself, because you'll be building a scalable business, right? But this is going to be the future. It's not going to abate. We're going to have more vacancies, and we're going to have the need for people to work outside of their locations. So, having said that, let's look at the gig economy, which is the next thing about HR in the new age. So we're talking about HR in the new age. We talked about distributed workforce, and then the gig economy. Simply put, the gig economy refers to a labor market characterized by the prevalence of short-term jobs, short-term contracts, freelance work. If you look around these days, and when I started talking about loyalty in organizations, loyalty is becoming. There is a conversation in the UK that has been really topical since last year, which is around the IR35. For anyone who knows that, it's, talks about how contractors, people who do freelance jobs, how they pay their tax, practically. Whether they pay them as individuals or they pay them through the companies that they are working for. So there's been, if you go on LinkedIn, for instance, you would usually see, maybe you see contract jobs, advertised. You will usually see inside IR35 or outside IR35. So those conversations are there. A lot of people want to do these freelance jobs, not freelance really, I think the word contract now in this particular sense I'm explaining. A lot of people want to do contract jobs because they can easily do a 6-month job and then take the next 6 months to go to the Bahamas or go on a holiday. In fact, the premium people pay to holidays these days is huge. And that's why I say a lot of people are paying attention more now to their mental health, to their families, and I think these are the things that COVID has come to teach us, that life can actually move on. And then because people had stayed a lot with their families, people during the COVID period had to learn new things. They need more time to do those things they have learned, which is another way of looking at it. So the gig economy is another up and coming phenomenon, which is going to blow into a bigger thing in the near future, where you would have less full-time workers and more contract workers. People want to be able to work on multiple jobs. People want to be able to do, work with one company, work with the other one at night. They want to wake up in the middle of the night, start, continue from where they stop with their jobs, decide they don't want to work the next day. It's that flexibility that people want. In fact, I think it has become a law in the UK recently where employees have the right to discuss flexible work environment. I think it was towards the end of last year. It was made a kind of a law or something. But you can begin to see where we have gotten to. Now, in the past, when you talk about you're going to do an interview, you are keen on the salary and some other indices. But now, in fact, the conversations around hybrid or flexible or location and all that usually never comes up, because it's a no-brainer that when you're coming in, you're doing a 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or 9 to 10 or whatever, and it's either you're in or you're out. But these days, contemporary HR folks are already putting it in the adverts to say, okay, yes, we would have that conversation. And then at the beginning of the conversation, everyone is discussing what is in it in terms of flexibility, where you're going to be working and all that. People want to be sure. And this whole freelance kind of jobs, or you go to sites like Fiverr, for instance. Anyone who knows Fiverr, you go to Fiverr, you go to, there's another one that just, a company in Nigeria, TerraWorks. These are companies like TerraWorks, for instance. You have professionals who offer their services to different people. So you can go on that page and request for a service. It's just like Fiverr as well. Request for a service, and you kind of sign a contract with the person. Upwork is also there in the US. Upwork is a mighty company in the US. And these kind of companies have also encouraged these kind of work behavior. And the most people that you see on those kind of jobs are the Gen Zs. In fact, there is a statistics that shows that 46% of Gen Z workers are freelancers. These are the people who need their time. They're absolutely productive, very productive folks. In fact, if you work with a Gen Z and maybe you are a baby boomer, there's usually going to be, in fact, I did a talk sometime, I can't remember where, but I did a talk sometime on coexisting between the boomers and the Gen Zs, it's such a such worlds apart, to be honest. The boomers are usually very calm, very careful, always, kind of not well, what thorough, but quite not slow really, but thorough is the word really. But you see, the Gen Zs are more productive, very fast. They will spend quick 30 minutes to do a 2 hours job, and then they spend the next 1 hour on their phone. That's productivity, and not you can't take anything away from that, to be honest. You can't take anything away from that because they've done the job. Come on, they've done the job very fast and very effective, and then they spend their time on social. We'll talk a little bit about some of the characteristics of Gen Zs that we need to look out for and work with. So I was talking about the coming of these kind of companies, these platform. Most of this platform business. I think last 2 weeks we talked about business models. We talked about platform business models. So most of these platform businesses have also helped to encourage freelancing, because you can just go on the network, get a gig role, get a gig job, do it, get your money, move off, and continue your life. And then people are able to juggle leisure and work in very fine lines. In the past, it's usually you work the whole week and then you leisure on weekends. It's no longer the case, right? So you can work in the morning, 2 hours, go to the gym, and then come back, do another job, take the kids to the park, and then so that's the future of work. It's already almost here, but this is going to be mainstream in the next few years. Now, HR folks who understand these nuances are the guys who are going to stay afloat. Otherwise, people would resume today, and after a month, they will leave. And then you go back to the market. And remember, each time you go back to the market, you're spending money to do that recruitment. Most companies pay agents, pay this, pay that to get people interviewed and all that. They spend a lot of money. So the cost of that turnover, employee turnover, is also impacting bottom line. So if you're a CEO, you better want to start thinking about, how do we manage this gig economy? How do we stay ahead of the float to ensure that we're able to create a workspace that is also quite welcoming to these Gen Zs. Recently, I go to most tech companies these days. If you see their offices, you see snooker boards, you see games around. So you see these guys, they code for a while, they come out, they go to the chill out room, they play their games, play their video games, they do all those stuff, they go back. And the research has also shown that these things also help the brain, help the mind to be more productive. So it's not just you aligning to what these people are, but you're also aligning to help your productivity. So if you're still a CEO who is keen on people who just come to sit down in the office and then you believe they have come to work and then they sign out and go, you're more or less the clock in and clock out kind of CEO, then you may want to rethink your model around productivity. If it takes 2 hours to do what somebody would have done in 6 hours, then pay the person 2 hours and get the person to go do what he wants to do. It's an important thing because you also want to optimize your HR budgets. You want to optimize your resource costs. And that you're not just keeping people sitting around the office doing nothing. Rethinking how we do work and how we package our jobs is a key part of HR in this new age. So that's about, so just a quick rundown about the Gen Zs. We all know them between the 1995s or so to about 2010 or 2005. Those are the Gen Zs. Excuse me. And clearly, like I mentioned, there are people who believe in social networks. They're usually called, they're very mobile. And they have what they call multiple realities. They are work people, they are happy people, they are sports people, they're everything. They want to have a bit of everything. And really, isn't that what life is? You want to have a taste of everything, But one thing you can take away from the Gen Zs is that they're super, super productive. And I've seen Gen Zs who are able to I used to have a colleague those days back there in Nigeria. She's now in Canada. She's always on her phone, but you can never find her wanting in her tasks. Never. So she spends 20 minutes on her computer doing her task very fast. It's all done. And then she goes back to Instagram or wherever, and she's all smiling and happy. When it's time to drop it, she drops it, she goes back to the job. It's that ability to switch and come back very fast that's really amazing. And so if you're a CEO and sees your Gen Z pressing their phone and you come on them with all sense of the boss, then you may want to rethink how you manage them, manage Gen Zs, right? So again, a lot of things to describe them. They usually call them they're undefined IDs. So they say they are identity nomads. They're people who are constantly trying to discover new things. I talked about that already. They want to discover new things. What's the best way to do this? And in a way, that is a skill everybody needs in a company. Because you don't want to use the same process every time. You want to think about new ways. These are folks who are happy to try new things. They're happy to try new. So you bring in a new process in the company. They want to try it out. They're happy. They're excited to play with it. They even form games around it. They want to try the new process. You bring something new. They want to try a new way of going to the market. So they turn work into fun because of their nature of being identity nomads. They are people you want to keep around the office. But again, you must manage them effectively because else they get bored. They easily get bored. And once they get bored, it usually is difficult. Money is not one of the key things that keeps them. They want money to do some of the things they need, but it's not the key thing. They need freedom, but they also need to be guided, right? So I think that's enough of the Gen Zs. So what is in this whole thing for HR, today's HR? We'll be rounding off in the next few minutes. What's in all this for today's HR? So if you're an HR person, you're a CEO, why should I be worried? Why should I be worried? Or what should I be bracing myself to do? Now, very easily, you must be, as a HR professional or as a head of HR or working in HR, you must be willing to try new models of workforce management. Because in fact, one of the conversations I had with this head of HR while I was in London was that there is still the whole workforce environment is still yet to discover its is still yet to bet, if you understand. So it's still trying to discover the final solution, because you see a lot of confusion. There's some companies that are saying everybody come back to work. You hear somebody like was it Elon Musk who was I think it was Elon Musk who mentioned that people need to work more hours and stuff, come back to the office and all that. I've had some senior establishment CEOs asking the employees to come back to work. Some have given the employees full time to work from home. Some have made it hybrid. There is still a lot of people are still trying out things, to be honest. People are still trying out models to see, in terms of this whole hybrid, remote, work from office, distributed, whatever, what's workable. So it is still a time for experimentation. In fact, that was what she said. That it's still a time for experimentation, and that within the next few years, we will be able to get to a point where we begin to get clearer about what's the most optimal. We may still have a blend of everything, but we will tilt more towards something in the next few years. So HR professionals need to be willing. They need to be willing to try out new things to be able to get to that point where they find the optimal. So things like job sharing, collaboration, single village workforce, where you have workforce from anywhere in the world. HR should be willing to try out new models as they become available, as the technology becomes mature and stuff like that. And then again, flexibility is a key consideration. So people need to be, HR needs to begin to think about flexibility in how it is today. How do you ensure that people are flexible on their jobs? Job rotations, getting some contract jobs. Don't be too scared of losing people, because they will still go anyways if they want to go. But while they are there, get them to enjoy the job. Get them to enjoy the job. I think that's how people want to stay more. If they enjoy what they do, it aligns with their passion. It aligns with, I think HR has to become agile and it has to be customized. I think that's the word. HR has to be customized. I think that's like the pattern words I'm going to be leaving. So if anybody sees this video sometime, he's able to see this. HR needs to be customized. Customized. So it has to be tailored to the individuals. Shouldn't be one size fits all model anymore. So if this person is coming in, and because we need everybody in the office, every kind of person, every diverse kind of people and all that, we have Gen Zs, we have boomers, we have millennials, we have I think there's the Gen Alphas or so. We have everybody in there. We should be able to tailor our HR policies and our HR engagements, workforce management, tailor it to individuals so that we can get the best of people. I think it's a lot more difficult for HR, and that's why I say I don't envy HR folks at the moment. It means that they have to become more ingenious about how they think, how they work in HR, right? So hybrid, remote, and all that has to be balanced. Focus on mental health is key. Leveraging technology and all that is also there. So in all of this, I think what we've just tried to do today is to reflect on the challenges of HR at the moment and how business owners, new businesses, innovators can step up to solve that problem. Because there is a problem here that has created what we call disequilibrium in the market. And entrepreneurs are needed to create solutions, build technologies, build workflows that will bring the market back to equilibrium. And that's how you make money. When there is a market dysfunction, you create a solution that brings the market back to equilibrium, and then you're able to make a profit and make your revenues. So I'm hoping that in the course of this conversation, we've been able to reflect on the new age of HR and the new age of the workforce around the distributed workforce, the gig economy, and the Gen Zs. So hopefully we can begin to reflect and think more on how we can solve the problems around HR for the future. And then we're hoping that in the next few years, we'll be able to have grown, some real innovators from this program, solving life problems and, impacting the world, which is the goal really, to create a platform where people can thrive, and celebrate together. So if you have been there listening, and thank you very much for all the comments there. I think some companies are going to struggle with the change and all that. That's the case. If you have been there, thank you very much. If you watch this video later, please pop in to our socials at Roadmap MBA on all the platforms. And then you can also go on our website, roadmapmba.com, and very soon the app will be out for you to use. It's been wonderful. I've enjoyed talking. That's what I do. That's my stock in trade. Until next time, see you.